Hello and welcome to Natural Sciences. Today's topic is balance in the ecosystem. Did you know that cocoa farmers usually clear forests to plant new cocoa trees rather than reusing the same land again? So the more you eat chocolate, just remember that you are also contributing to the increasing number of deforestation in the country. So before we dive into today's lesson, these are the things that you should be able to do by the end of the lesson. So the first one is you should be able to explain how balance in the ecosystem is achieved. That is the first thing. And then secondly, you should be able to explain how population growth affects balance in the ecosystem. Then you should be able to list the natural factors that disturb the balance in the ecosystem. And lastly, you should be able to list human factors that disturb the balance in the ecosystem. So this is our concept map, which gives us an idea as to how this lesson is going to go. So the first thing that we are going to discuss is the balance in the ecosystem. We will then speak about the population growth. And then we are going to speak about the factors that disturb a balanced ecosystem. Then we are going to look at these factors individually, the natural factors and the human factors. By now, you should be able to explain what producers and consumers are. If you remember, we said producers are organisms that have the ability to make their own food, while consumers are the organisms that feed on other organisms in order to get energy and food supply. So you need to be able to explain the difference between primary, secondary, and tertiary consumers. You should also be able to distinguish between herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. You should also know that food chains represent the energy flow from one organism to the next, while food webs show the flow of energy through interconnected food chains. So lastly, you should be able to interpret an energy pyramid and also trophic levels. So that is what you need to know in order for you to be ready for this lesson. So let us just quickly do this quick revision activity just to revive our memory on this topic. So our question says, look at the picture below, well, alongside, and answer the questions that follow. So our first question says, if the grass and trees die, so if the grass and trees die, if you remember, grass and trees are our producers. So these are our producers. If they die, what would happen to the zebras and elephants? And if you remember, zebras and elephants are our herbivores, which means they feed on the grass and the trees. So what normally would happen is that if the producers die, or if the grass and trees die, then the elephants and the zebras would not have food to eat, which could potentially lead to their death. That is our first question. Now, our second one says, what would happen if all the zebras contracted a disease and died? So now we are speaking about the herbivores. What would happen if they were all to die? So if zebras die, we know that these zebras are eaten by the cheetah in this context because the cheetah is the predator. So now this means that these zebras are going to die and the cheetah will not have anything to eat. And if that's the case, the cheetah will start eating other organisms, and if they run out, it would also eventually die. Now let us look at the third question. What would later happen to the cheetah and the hyena? So now the term later tells us that after all of these answers that we gave here, what would eventually happen to the cheetah and the hyena? So now that there are no zebras to eat, there are no producers to eat, then the hyena and the cheetah might also find themselves not having food and might eventually die and will get broken down by decomposers and fertilize the earth, and then nutrients are recycled in that manner. So that is all for our pre-knowledge activity. So we are going to move on to our new terminology. These are the words that you are going to come across in this lesson. So we are going to go and look at them and explain what each of them means. Right, so the first word that we come across is disruption. So the term disruption is when something disturbs or interferes with the balance of an ecosystem. That is called a disruption, when it disturbs or interferes with the balance of an ecosystem. The second term is decay. It refers to the process of decomposition of dead animals or plants by microorganisms. So this is the breaking down of dead plants or animals by decomposers. The third word is pollution. Pollution is the introduction of harmful substances to an environment. And then we have pollutants. Pollutants refers to substances that contaminate water, land, and air. So pollution is when you are introducing harmful substances, and a pollutant is the actual substance that is being introduced into an environment. So you should not confuse the two. Right, our next term is contamination, which is an action of making something dirty or impure. Our next term is poaching. So poaching refers to the illegal removal of plants and animals from their natural habitat. Then we have carrying capacity, which is the number of individuals of a population that an ecosystem can sustain without harming the environment. And our last term is sustain. Sustain is the ability to maintain something at a certain rate or level. So when you are maintaining or balancing something at a certain rate or level, that is referred to as sustaining. So we are going to leave it here for now, and I'll see you after the ad break.